It looks like Marcus Rashford's option to buy could become an obligation to buy if he hits certain conditions while on loan at Barcelona. And that includes not only a 30 million euro option to buy, but a 5 million add-on clauses as well. So Manchester United potentially could make 30 million for Marcus Rashford if he does well at Barcelona. Benjamin Cesco's 60 million deal has been revealed for Benjamin Cesco. 60 million to get the deal over the line. If Nicholas Jackson's 60 million and Cesco's 60 million, it's looking more and more feasible. As Fabrizio Romano confirms, a striker deal is happening for Manchester United. He has confirmed that. What is the latest on Rasmus Hojlund? Hojlund wants to stay. Hojlund will only leave if he feels unwanted. But the fact that Manchester United are working on a striker signing, despite having two strikers in Hojlund and Xerxes and Cunha and Mbeumo that can play striker, I don't think Hojlund's wanted. So maybe take the hint, Hojlund. Garnacho, what's the latest on his exit? Chelsea interest, we will dive into that. And then we're going to talk about Kolo Muani links. And honestly, Real Betis are just taking the piss and basically just trying to mug us off in regards to getting Anthony on loan. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. Welcome back to your 10-minute roundup, where I'm rounding up all the Manchester United news into a 10-minute late night show. If you're new to the channel, throughout the transfer window, pretty much every evening where there's a lot of news or a lot of relevant, credible news, we round it up into a 10-minute video at the end of the day, so you're up to date. Let's start with Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford's loan with option to buy may come an obligation to buy under certain conditions. Unknown. Option to buy is just over 30 million euros plus bonuses of 5. So if you include the bonuses, we could get 30 million for Rashford, which sounds better because I do think, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Alice, it's 26 million for Rashford, but we save 15 million in wages. So we're technically getting 40 million for Rashford, la, 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 la. I get your point. But if we've got 40 million for Rashford and we save those monies in wages, you could say we've got 55 million for Rashford. I still think, as much as Amorim hates Rashford, a lot of this fan base don't like Rashford, we could have got a lot more than £26 million option to buy. But the 5 million add-ons is now as a 30 million option to buy is better. I think Chelsea would have got 40 million, but we're in a weaker position when he's fallen out with the manager so publicly and he's not welcome back to training. We all know that. We don't know why, what went down, something to do with the wages they don't like for sure. But Rashford's loan could become an obligation. So it might be something like if Rashford gets 15 plus goals or, 20 plus goal contributions, Barcelona must buy him. It could be something like that. It could be if he hits a certain amount of minutes, a certain amount. I think minutes is a bad one because sometimes they'll just play under that amount of minutes. But I think if he hits a certain number of goals, potentially it's a permanent, which is a boost there because I was like, a loan with an obligation to buy I can do for Rashford, a loan with an option, it just puts us in a weak position, I think. So hopefully it turns into an obligation. Hopefully Rashford does well. But I want to talk about the latest on Benjamin Cesco. So Romano and many credible sources have confirmed United's interest in Cesco. He's one of the names on the list with Keane, Jackson, Watkins. I mean, Mateta hasn't been linked to us so much recently. I think he would be the best option of those I just named. That doesn't seem as realistic. But what has been said? Manchester United's search for a striker has not been limited to players in the Premier League by any means. There remains interest in Cesco. Laurie Whitwell, David Ornstein, obviously now James Ducker of The Telegraph, Ben Jacobs, is now saying that Cesco is a target for Manchester United. But I've always said, well, Arsenal walked away from Cesco because Gyökeres was going to be cheaper. And Gyökeres is a better player than Cesco. Like, let's admit that, I like Cesco. I think Cesco has got insane potential. But Cesco, you're buying potential, and United still definitely need ready-made. Like, Cesco's an improvement on Hojlund, but you are buying potential with Cesco. However, CFC Bayern, who is good when it comes to Bundesliga news, Christian Falk, said that RB Leipzig are open to negotiations if they receive a fee closer to 60.6 million for Cesco. So we're talking of a 60 million Benjamin Cesco deal. If Nicholas Jackson's 60 million, Benjamin Cesco is 60 million, and Ollie Watkins is 60 million, you potentially look at Cesco because of, that you're buying potential. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Cesco wouldn't come in and save us and score 20 goals and transform us right away. Cesco is very raw. Cesco is good. He looks great in clips. He looks great in highlights. But if you watch Cesco across multiple full 90s, you will see that he's very raw. And I don't think he massively comes in and transforms United. But I think in terms of potential, in terms of raw player, there's a monster in Cesco. But a lot of people say the same about Hland. Cesco is an improvement on Hland. He's a good player. I'd be happy if we signed him. But I do have, concerns around his instant impact. I think he's an improvement on Hland, but how well will he be able to impact United? He could be the next Zlatan, don't get me wrong, but there is elements of his game that I think are a little bit raw, and people are probably who haven't watched him loads don't see that. But Cesco for 60 million, considering the striker market, Ekitike is about 90 million. You're looking at the price of other players in the market. Chelsea value Nicholas Jackson at around apparently 80 to 100 million, and then other sources say 60 million. It's not an awful deal. It's not an awful deal for me. Ollie Watkins, if you get him for 40 million, would be my first choice striker. Nicholas Jackson, I don't think is as bad as people online make out, but he wouldn't be my first pick. Sesko for 60 million. Who says no? Now, Fabrizio Romano has pretty much confirmed a striker deal is happening for Manchester United. Now, I don't know if that striker deal will be the 60 million deal for Benjamin Sesko, but he's pretty much said a new striker signing is almost guaranteed to happen. 2 meetings have taken place in the last 7 days. United are pushing to sign a striker. This was said by Fabrizio Romano. A striker signing is guaranteed to happen, almost guaranteed to happen. Doesn't necessarily mean they will be in by the start of the season. This could go down to deadline day, but United want a new striker. It's been made very clear. I don't even know if that is news at this point. That we want a new striker, because I feel like we've known that. We've known we're going for striker next, although David Ornstein said actually we might not be a striker next. We might just do what's the easiest to do. David Ornstein and Romano, particularly Ornstein, said we want a striker, we want a goalkeeper, and we want a defensive midfielder. Striker is probably the priority out of those three, but a goalkeeper might be easier to do. So it's not necessary that we sign a striker next. We might sign Lemens next. It's an easier deal to do financially, and United haven't chosen which striker they want to focus on yet. So it's one of those kind of situations in regards to the striker move. But interestingly, Rasmus Hojlund. I think if Rasmus Hojlund goes, it would give us more funds for a striker. And Laurie Whitwell and David Ornstein did say there's strong suggestions Hojlund could go. The problem is Hojlund doesn't want to go, and Romano said this. Hojlund doesn't want to leave. He really loves the club. He wants to live his dream of being a Manchester United player and make it work. If the club tell him to leave, he will consider his options. I think the club is very much like this. If we don't sign a striker, we're obviously going to keep Hojlund because we haven't signed a striker. And at the end of the day, with Mbeumo, Cunha and Xerxes all able to pay striker, it could take the pressure off Hojlund. But the minute we sign a striker, we're telling Hojlund to leave. And if you're Rasmus Hojlund and you see us going out of our way to really try and sign a striker, despite signing Mbeumo and Cunha, when we need a midfielder and we need a goalkeeper and we need probably a wing back, take the hint, Hojlund. They don't want you. We haven't told you to leave because we haven't signed a striker. The minute we sign a striker, they will tell Hojlund to leave. I think Hojlund will go, but I think it could go down to the end. I think it depends on which striker we sign, how long is it done. I think Hojlund's going to go out on loan. If I'm going to be totally honest, I think Hojlund's going to go out on loan. I don't think anyone's going to pay up the 35 million to do a permanent deal. But there's a lot of interest over in Italy in Hojlund. Hojlund is very much appreciated out in Italy. Continuing on, Chris Wheeler also said that Ruben Amorim is keen to sign a striker with Premier League experience, but that isn't a necessity. So I'm going to be honest. I think we'll sign Jackson. And I think Garnacho will go the other way. I'm going to guess this now. 60 million deal for Cesco. Watkins, potentially. I think we'll get Nicholas Jackson. And Nicholas Jackson is a lot better than people are saying online. I'm not totally against it. For the right price, I'm not totally against Jackson. Do I want Jackson? No. Do I want to swap Garnacho for Jackson? No. Would I rather go for a big proper centre mid with this kind of money? Yes. Do I think Jackson is as bad as people make out? No. I think Jackson's a decent player, I just think he's a very confidence player and he's maybe a little bit rash, and that's something that United isn't going to help with. We don't need more rash players, and we're not someone that helps confidence. That's my concern. But in regards to Garnacho, Laurie Whitwell gave some updates on this and said that the Garnacho-Chelsea thing feels like it has some substance, as there are some players that Chelsea want to offload. Jackson has come up in conversations, and Nkunku earlier in the summer. We've obviously moved away from Nkunku. Many sources have confirmed that. But Jackson, we haven't. It's one to look at. Chelsea are working on Xavi Simons, so of course that is their focus. It means that maybe for them to do a deal for Garnacho, because they might still want Garnacho after Xavi Simons, because Xavi Simons is probably going to play 10 and Palmer on the right. Potentially, then they look at Garnacho and Man United Jackson swap deal. But who knows? Garnacho has turned down a lot of clubs. in Italy and in Germany because he's confident of a Premier League move. Has Chelsea or Villa, Tottenham apparently have a new emerging interest in Garnacho said to him, look, we're going to go for you? I don't know. But Romano said on his Here We Go podcast earlier today that the two positions United are prioritising are striker and a goalkeeper, but he said keep an eye on defensive midfielders. He said in the next week, if there's a good opportunity in the market, United are going to make their moves, but the budget depends on outgoings. Right now, where are the outgoings? Garnacho is the only potential outgoing. There's talk about Kolo Muani. His focus is Juventus. Juventus work under Kolo Muani, but if that collapses, he could be offered to United, said Romano. But the big problem is this, and I told you this, the minute they saw Barcelona get Rashford on loan with an option to buy, Real Betis are going to do the same. Real Betis are going to wait to delay their move for Antony until Manchester United have no choice but to accept a loan deal. There are other clubs interested, willing to pay transfer fees, but Betis are hoping Antony will reject them and accept a pay cut to join them. Because Marcus Rashford was so desperate to join Barcelona, we're in a position where our only choice was Marcus Rashford to take a pay cut and go to Barcelona. Antony's going to do the same as Rashford, and we're not going to get any money for Antony. But I'm hoping if we send Antony to Betis, at least we get an obligation. I said this now. Antony's not a problem causer. We should have brought Antony on tour. And people might say, what do you mean? We should have brought Antony back to training, Antony on tour. We should have pretended that we were so impressed with what he did on loan that we were happy to keep Antony, and Betis all of a sudden would have some money. I'm telling you this now. Betis made 50 million in sales. If we'd have pretended that we were happy with Antony, he really impressed on loan, he was part of the plans, brought him on tour, Betis would pay up. But we were in a weak negotiating position, and that's our fault. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.